All right, so the engagement story, not really that crazy, but kind of fun, and fun in how the way that it ended of us sitting at a Bubba Gump drinking Miller Lite in front of a pregnant smoking bartender while we tried to call our parents and family and let them know that we were happily engaged. The reason that I told that story is because I think oftentimes in my own life, and maybe somebody else listening can relate to this, is that my expectation does not match my reality of what happens. And the reason it does that most of the time is not because the reality is not what it should be. It's because my expectations are not what they should be. And I had to kind of do some self-examination over the last couple of years of what my expectations are about all the different facets in my life. And when I get right down to it, the lesson that I learn is my expectations do not match my reality in a lot of instances because one of two things. One, I have unrealistic expectations of what the situation is or could be just in and of itself. Or two, I have unrealistic expectations of what that situation is or could be compared to what I have done to make it that type of a thing. So, two examples. One would be as a married couple, having time together, date nights, having adult conversations, having a little sexy time, whatever you want to call it. That stuff is going to ebb and flow and ups and downs. And when it has ups and when it has downs, oftentimes that is because the people involved are making or not making the effort, whether it's just having time every day to talk about stuff or to make sure that we go on date nights, make sure to continue to date your spouse, continue to do nice things for your spouse. You know, what I noticed is when I'm not putting in that effort, and it's good effort, but when I'm not putting that effort and that work in, then how can I expect to have the same type of result compared to when I was putting the work in and when I was putting the effort in? So if I'm not making time in my schedule to be able to spend time with my wife to talk about the budget or just talk about life, or if I'm not asking her to go out on a date with me every couple of weeks or every month over a long period of time to be able to just have some grown-up time, then why would I expect that our conversational life or our date life is going to be just awesome? If I'm not one of the people putting the work in, then why would I have the expectation that it would be any differently? And I think it's very easy for us today. Everything we see on social media, everything we see on TV, it's dialed to 11, and that's just not reality. You know, the funny thing is like you watch any show or movie or whatever, anytime there's a sex scene, it's like, you know, the most passionate, the most greatest, the most wild chandelier hanging sex in the world. And it's like, okay, that's not reality for most people most of the time, right? Same thing you see, the Marvel movies, all the leading actors that were just completely jacked, and what that represented for a lot of guys, myself included, is that's just not realistic for most people, even if you're doing everything in your power. So I think there's that aspect of it. And then the other part of it, I said, is just as having unrealistic expectations compared to the reality just in and of itself. And if you walk into an expectation, if you walk into a situation with an expectation, then I think you're setting yourself up potentially to be let down and to play into the negativity of your ego and let resentment and all that kind of stuff build up. Now, there's a difference between, hey, I have an expectation that when I get in my car, it starts, or that the door shuts in my house, or, you know, when I go to the grocery store, the cash registers are working for self-checkout, those kind of things. So I'm talking about a great example would be a movie, for example. I just talked about Marvel, but when you think about movies, and I'm a big fan of movies, including a lot of the Marvel movies, you have a tendency to go into those or any movie that you might like, and you focus on what it isn't as opposed to what it is. And a lot of people get upset about that. So you can figure that out about a movie, a dinner with friends, having a day to go shopping or playing golf or whatever. But if you have a set of expectations that are outside of like, hey, I'm just going to go do the thing, or I'm just going to go watch the thing. If you have an outside expectation that's usually driven by ego, by need, by desire, by a want versus just experiencing it. And then oftentimes you end up focusing on the things that it isn't, as opposed to appreciating it and just experiencing it for the things that it is.